Good afternoon. Thank you. My name's Richard Day, and it's my privilege to host this afternoon's forum, which will attempt to answer the question, what's new with higher ed budgeting in Kentucky? Our program today will come in three pieces. Following introductions, we will learn about the higher ed budget being proposed by the Council on Post-Secondary Education. A moderated discussion with our legislators comes next, and I'll be around with a microphone for questions from the audience at the end. Any students who are eligible for course credit based on their attendance today can have the back of their program signed by any member of the Faculty Senate. And just so we can take a little roll, let me see Faculty Senate members today. Please stand. Thank you very much. So any of these folks can help out students and sign your program. At this time, I'd like to ask everyone to please pull out your web-enabled devices and set them to silent, but please don't turn them off. Instead, we would ask you to join the conversation on Twitter at hashtag EKU Forum. And that would be a nice way for you to participate in the discussion about higher ed funding. Now, to bring greetings on behalf of the EKU Faculty Senate and to introduce our president, it's my pleasure to call up our chair, Dr. Sheila Presley.
Thank you, Dr. Day. Good afternoon. Good. Welcome to the second annual Legislative Forum sponsored by EKU's Faculty Senate and other entities, which I will mention later. I want to extend a hearty welcome to our panelists and all of our guests, representatives from CPE, elected officials. Thank you so much. A hearty Colonel welcome to you all today. I'd also like to thank a list of individuals here on campus who make this possible. Our provost, Dr. Jana Weiss, soon-to-be Dr. David McFadden from Government Relations, the EKU Center for the Arts, Mr. Joel Alberts and his staff, thank you for this wonderful venue. It's absolutely beautiful. And to all of the individuals who made the technology piece come together today, we thank you. And I'd also like to personally thank the Faculty Senate Executive Committee. And you saw some of those individuals stand earlier, but I especially want to thank Dr. Richard Day, because this wouldn't have come together without his thinking and without taking the initiative that he did. We thank you so much, Dr. Day. Today, we also have sign language interpreters with us. We have Ms. Tammy Cantrell and Ms. Tracy Crunky. We want to thank them as well. Thank you for being here. And with that, I want to give a special thank you to our president, Dr. Michael Benson. Can we give a round of applause to all of those individuals? Thank you. This is a very important part of having everyone get a chance to ask questions, to hear responses from the individuals who make higher education possible here in the state of Kentucky. And although President Benson is new to EKU, he is not new to this type of forum. And he jumped in full steam ahead, ready to help us put this on, and we really appreciate him for that. We also appreciate the vision that he has for our institution. We all understand that higher education is important, but it's from the angle and the values that we all come from that make the difference. So without any further ado, I want to introduce you to, and to some it's an introduction, to some it's just saying hello again, President Michael Benson.
I will just echo what Sheila said in thanking all those that have helped put this together. As she said, I've been around higher education my entire professional career, and as I watch legislators and I watch lobbyists who are exercising many of their First Amendment rights, which, as you know, the last one, the right to petition the government for a redress of grievances, I have come to appreciate that these individuals to my right take time away from their families, from their friends, from their professions, to represent us. When you see firsthand the demands that people make of them on their time and attention, and they're all worthy causes. I would argue that higher education is the worthiest of causes because an investment in human capital, in people, particularly in educating our workforce, is the best investment a state can make. But I see it firsthand how much pressure is put upon them, and I want to personally thank them for their service. We may not always agree. That's the beauty of our democratic republic. We have a chance to be not disagreeable, but we can disagree, but I want to thank them for the service. I'd also like to thank the gentleman to my left, both Bob and Aaron. These are gentlemen that care about education generally, and they care about higher education specifically at EKU. And I want to thank them for their representing our views to the legislature and to the governor and to the entire state. This is an important occasion for us to hear from them about the budget. You hear this talk about the new normal and encumbrances that states have now as it relates to federal mandates and costs. Higher education, as you know, competes with a lot of other worthy causes, but our charge as a campus community is to make that case that this is the best investment the Commonwealth of Kentucky can make in our citizenry in higher education. So with that, thank you to our panelists, thank you for your service, and thank you all for being here.
Not to be too redundant, but I too would like to thank the panelists for being here today. To the legislators, I would say, I don't know if I'd want to be in y'all's shoes right now. To quote 6-year-old Mr. Truman Benson, too much problems. Kentucky certainly has its share. If you'll permit me a personal note, I'm proud to say that my father served in the Kentucky House of Representatives in the mid-1950s. In the history of Kentucky public education, the minimum foundation program passed by the 1954 legislature stands as Kentucky's crowning achievement for the post-World War II years. Representative Simpson, he was in the old Kenton County 58th out of Ludlow. As you might imagine, that was not the only thing going on in 1954. That legislature also faced great challenges and had to decide how and how much to invest in its schools. To our friends at CPE, as a college education professor and former Kentucky school principal, I have a deep appreciation for the vital public service that our state educational agencies provide. CPE's steadfast support for better educational opportunities for all Kentuckians is commendable, and we thank you. When I entered the University of Kentucky as a freshman in 1969, my middle-class parents were able to afford my tuition, room, and board. I worked full-time every summer and part-time during the school year to cover my additional expenses. I couldn't afford a car, but I had a bus ticket home and everything I needed to get started in my chosen profession of teaching. I graduated in 4 years without any debt and have contributed to the economy for, 4 decades now. In those days, America was focused on increasing the percentage of baby boomers who were college educated. Higher education was seen as having a direct correlation to Kentucky's economic prosperity, and Kentucky contributed as much as 2/3 of the cost to that student's education, in the belief that the state would realize a return and a more productive citizenry. And the state's GDP soared. For today's students, circumstances have reversed. Revenue growth, which stood at 14% in the 60s, shrunk to the 2% range in the 2000s and is estimated to be around 2.7% next year. The state now supports about 1/3 of a college student's costs, leaving Kentucky families to make up the other 2/3. According to the National Center for Educational Statistics and Forbes magazine, today's average U.S. college student graduates in just under 6 years and leaves school with an average debt of $27,253. That represents a 58% increase in just the past 7 years. At the same time, median earnings for bachelor's degree holders 25 years and older have fallen by 3%. And delinquency on student loans taken out since 2010 now stands at 15.1%, and that's bad for business. As Bill Ellis wrote in his History of Education in Kentucky, our colleges and universities have had difficulty balancing their budgets in the new century, with a full-fledged recession beginning in 2008. Public universities saw their endowments drop 20%, and faculty raises became rare. Economists say the state's antiquated tax structure is not responsive enough to changes in the economy, and we could face a $1 billion deficit by 2020 unless something is done. But it's not clear what's being done. These facts will be of no comfort to our legislators, who, as the Herald Leader reported, will be called upon to address a host of challenges, including other legitimate public demands in health care, pensions, and other public services. Weak state revenues have limited legislative choices, while the state's most recent Blue Ribbon Commission on Taxation produced a report that the Nonpartisan Tax Foundation called a disappointing grab bag. In preparation of the state's biennial budget, the preparation of the state's biennial budget will be the lawmakers' major task when the General Assembly convenes in January. They must divide just under $20 billion, 45% of which goes to public education. The other 55% funds everything else, including post-secondary education. And public education funding has a constitutional mandate behind it and is expected to be a hot topic. Fixing all of this is not an enviable job, but it's a critically important one. Amid all this turmoil, higher education budgeting may be taking a turn. Faculty have heard talk of performance-based budgeting, but lack a clear picture of what that looks like in Kentucky. The leadership of UK and U of L sound supportive. Today's forum is a unique opportunity to learn about, think about, and ask questions about the Council on Post-Secondary Education's proposed budget. To help us moderate today's discussion, we've called upon EKU's Director of Governmental Relationships and Regional Stewardship, David McFadden. Prior to coming to EKU, David spent 15 years with AT&T Kentucky, where he was the Regional Director for Legislative and External Affairs. He is also an adjunct faculty member in the Department of Communication here at EKU, where he teaches government relations and journalism. Please welcome with me our moderator for today, David McFadden.
It is truly a pleasure to be with you today. My job is timekeeper and moderator. This is by all means your forum and is a great opportunity for us to hear a great dialogue from the executive branch at CPE as they draft the budget to our budget experts and our Madison County delegation that are with us. We are truly grateful to have you with us today. We have budget experts and those who have had long history with being part of this process with us in the audience today, and I look forward to hearing from you and hearing some good questions about where we need to go from here. Richard has laid out a great kind of boilerplate for the discussion that we're going to have today, and I'm going to take the opportunity to introduce our panelists, and then we'll get started. First, Dr. Bob King, the president of the Kentucky Council of Post-Secondary Education. Prior to taking his post in 2009, Mr. King served as the chancellor of the State University of New York, one of the largest comprehensive systems of universities, colleges, and community colleges in the world. Since coming to Kentucky, he has led statewide efforts to work collaboratively with K-12 education, focused on student success, and encouraged significant reforms in teacher and principal training. Let's welcome Dr. King. With him is one of our own, Dr. Aaron Thompson, who is the Senior Vice President for Academic Affairs at the Kentucky Council for Post-Secondary Education. Also joining CPE in 2009, Dr. Thompson has diligently served in his role by providing oversight and management for a variety of programs, linking the academic programs of Kentucky's post-secondary institutions with a public agenda addressing the needs of students, citizens, our local communities, and the overall economy. Dr. Thompson has an impressive track record as an accomplished author, educator, and higher education administrator during his tenure at both EKU and CPE. Let's welcome Dr. Thompson. Our legislative panel with us, Representative Rita Smart from right here in Richmond, Kentucky. She has diligently served the people of the 81st District since 2011. A small business owner and supporter of civic and nonprofit community organizations, she works every day to move her district forward. With committee assignments in agriculture, appropriations and revenue, post-secondary education, local government, and veterans, military affairs, and public safety, she has a broad scope of influence to shape our community and the state of Kentucky. Let's give Representative Smart a welcome. Representative Arnold Simpson proudly serves the 66th House District, which is part of Kenton County, Kentucky. Representative Simpson, we appreciate you coming down from Northern Kentucky to be with us today. An attorney by trade, Representative Simpson has served nearly a decade in the House of Representatives. His dedication to his service has earned him the distinguished honor of being the chair of the Budget Subcommittee on Post-Secondary Education. He's the vice chair for Appropriations and Revenue and a member of the Economic Development, Licensing and Occupations, Local Government, Transportation, and the Rules Committee. Under his leadership in these areas, not only has his district prospered, but also the entire state of Kentucky. Let's give Representative Simpson a welcome. Representative Jonathan Schell, representing the 36th District, has the proud honor of being the youngest member of the Kentucky General Assembly. At 25 years of age, Representative Schell represents his district very well. A lifelong farmer, entrepreneur, and a proud EKU alum, his committee assignments include agriculture, banking and insurance, local government, and rural issues. Let's welcome Jonathan Schell. Finally, our state senator from here in Madison County, Senator Jared Carpenter, was elected in 2011 to represent the people of the 34th Senate District. Growing up right here in Madison County, Senator Carpenter has been a lifelong supporter of our community and our university. He is a graduate of EKU with a major in communication, a minor in business administration, and a distinguished member of our athletics program here. During his professional career, he has worked as a banker, developer, and entrepreneur. Senator Carpenter has been a strong supporter of our local businesses, our entrepreneurs, our schools, and our community organizations. He currently holds committee assignments as the chairman of Natural Resources and Energy, vice chair for Banking and Insurance, and vice chair for Education. Let's give Senator Carpenter a welcome. With that, I'm going to turn the program over to our CPE representatives. They are going to give us their budget proposal for the 2014 legislative session. We're going to run about 20 minutes for that, and then we will have our legislators have a chance to have some response to that presentation, and then we will open it up to the floor for some comments. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me with the mic? Pull it up. First, thank you so much for inviting Aaron and me to this forum. It is an opportunity that we don't often get, which is to meet directly with faculty and students. And we do get to see our legislators quite a bit, but we're delighted that the four of you are here as well. The budget that we're going to describe to you, and we will do it very quickly, is the work product of over 6 months of effort that involved the input not only from our staff, but from our campus presidents, provosts, campus business officers, people in the governor's office, working together to come up with a proposal that we hope will be successful and effective in persuading the General Assembly to make further investment in public higher education here in Kentucky. What we spent a great deal of time on is trying to articulate, first and foremost for the operating budget, what would be the rationale that would be persuasive to legislators struggling with all of the challenges that they have to make these investments in higher education. The recommendations that we'll talk about in just a minute focus in three basic areas. The first is the operating budget. Second are what we call our incentive trust funds. You would know them as investments in a program started back in the early 2000s, shortly after higher ed reform was enacted, called Bucks for Brains. And third is the capital needs of our campuses. Just to give you a quick snapshot, we have to heat and light and plumb
over 50 million square feet of space on our campuses. Many of the buildings we have are new, but many are not and in need of significant attention. And so the capital budget addresses both the needs of our physical structures and physical infrastructure as well as IT needs. So with that, let me go to the first slide. You can see here, if you look down the left-hand column, the principal areas of the operating budget: college and career readiness, research and economic development, and what we'll call performance funding. The last two, land grant mission funds and the Kentucky Adult Learner Initiative, we'll get to in a few minutes, but Aaron's going to start explaining to you the college and career readiness piece. The blue side of this, by the way, is the magnitude of the request that would affect all of our campuses. On the maroon side is the proportion of those funds that would be allocated to Eastern Kentucky University. Aaron?
Maroon and blue. You know, it was, first of all, let me take a personal statement, privilege here, and just say thank you all for the invitation. It's good to be back home. I look at our representatives over here in the corner, and I know them each one very personally, and I would consider them friends, but I will also tell you that they care about the state and they care about higher education. I will also say that this is an impressive building, and when it was going up, I always imagined myself being on stage performing. I didn't think it would be in this venue, but you know, oh well, you get what you can get. Thank you, Dr. Benson, Provost Vice Chair Presley, and Richard for inviting us here. Many of you know that Senate Bill 1 was passed in the 2009 version of Senate Bill 1, calling on higher education and K-12 to work together to, in fact, and I see former Representative Mobberly here was very much a part of that bill, calling on us to be able to work together to provide for the needs of getting more K-12 students prepared for college, and then called on higher education specifically to get them through once we get them there. So we went to the legislature a few years ago and asked for a little money to kind of get us seated and get us started. And we got a little bit. As a matter of fact, during budget cuts, we were fortunate enough to get a few $1 million, and it was very few, but money, however, to kind of seed most of our universities, colleges, and in some cases, some K-12 interaction to do exactly that. And we have been very successful with that. And thanks to Eastern, we've done a lot of work in this part of the country, if you will, that I call it, in Appalachia, to help many of our students that are most disenfranchised academically kind of do a whole lot better. Now, we have a long way to go, and this part of the budget goes to address that. And it comes in 3 buckets, if you will. The first bucket is college readiness, and this college readiness bucket is going to kind of help incentivize our universities to work with K-12 members, districts, and their region to do some of the things that we started without a lot of funding. And by the way, I appreciate Eastern reallocating funds toward this effort. Items like transition courses. What we know now is about 29% of all the students that come to higher education now, college ready, comes through the form of the Compass or the Coyote, which was very much a part of the effort that higher ed and K-12 worked together in addition to the ACT to indicate that they were ready. Many of higher education had an input into that, and you still do, very strong interaction. As a matter of fact, Bob Thomas and his crew here was one of the primary groups of people to kind of establish the transition courses. This money goes to that. It goes to dual credit. It goes to us working directly with our region in order to help those students to become more academically prepared. The second piece of the bucket, if you will, second piece of the program in the second bucket is that of developmental education. Eastern, as well as several of our institutions, we still have a lot of students coming to us that are in academic need. And many of you know, and as a faculty member here for a long time, I know that it's more than just the academic issues that you have to deal with. It's also the social and emotional and the cultural elements. So when we're talking about students that are in developmental needs, we're talking about the holistic student. This money goes to think about redesigning our developmental ed program. You're going to hear some stuff coming out from my office fairly soon, Dr. Weiss knows, that's going to be helping us to rethink developmental education in the state at a deep level. So this part of the bucket goes to serving based on the amount of students that are in developmental need in your particular service region, how this money will be allocated. The third bucket in this group goes to teacher preparation. We know forever we talked about we could blame K-12 for all the things they need to do, and K-12 could blame parents. But we know we prepare our teachers. And I tell you, it's probably one of the more important pieces of what we do in our society is helping our teachers be prepared to work with our children. So this part goes to a deep induction level process. Increasing clinical models. Bob will be talking about the Vanguard project here in a few minutes, but it goes deeply in creating what I call squeezing from both ends, preparing our students to work with students from all different backgrounds. I mean, looking at gap closing and looking at differential education, but specifically starting students from the very first year that they are in a teacher ed program all the way through their master's program, being involved in a deep level understanding of what they do in the classroom. As a matter of fact, Eastern was a recipient of one of our clinical grants, one of our 3 clinical grants, and you're working with Corbin Independent, I think, in that area to kind of get a pilot started where we've used that research, and we'll be visiting your campus on Wednesday in Corbin to take another look at that. So that's our college and career readiness. We've gotten a lot of positive input from our legislature, from the executive office, as well as from around the state when we talk to campuses about how important this piece is.
Aaron, thanks. The next 2 pieces I'm going to talk about, research and economic development, is really a bucket of money targeted at UK and U of L to help them grow research in areas that are of particular interest to Kentucky. I'll leave it at that in respect of time. The third, and it's one that I'm hearing some concern about, is performance funding. Legislators have been saying to us for a number of years, coming back from the national conferences that they attend, that shouldn't there be some relationship between how we fund higher education and higher education performance. And so in the last budget cycle, we actually, with the cooperation and support of all of our campus leaders, presented a model that would tie a portion of funding to performance. That particular proposal was not adopted by the legislature, but there's still been ongoing discussion about it. And so in this budget proposal, we have a slightly different model. It is focused on degree production, and it assigns to each campus, and I'll use the word points. There's probably a nicer word to use, but we'll use that for the sake of this discussion. Every degree that is awarded by a campus is worth a certain amount of points. The points are determined in part by the value that that degree has in the economy, measured in dollars, compared to other degrees. So an associate degree, an average associate degree holder earns a certain amount of money. Certain bachelor's degree holders earn some increment of that, master's degrees, PhDs, et cetera. And so we built ratios for these point structures, number one. And number two, we said that if a degree is awarded in certain fields, STEM degrees, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, or in health-related areas, we will accord to those points a premium of 0.3 of a point for that. We also said that if the degrees are awarded to certain groups of students, low-income students, underrepresented minority students, that the points awarded for awarding a bachelor's degree to one of those students would get a premium as well of 0.3 of a point. The last factor that was added in kind of late in the going is some recognition of the difference in cost of instruction. That in fact, the cost of instruction at a research institution is higher and more costly than at a comprehensive, which is higher and more costly than in a community and technical college. So in any event, the way this works is we take the total number of degrees produced. You take into account whether or not the degrees went to low-income students, underrepresented minority students, whether it's in a STEM degree or health area. You take into account this cost of instruction stuff. And at the end of the day, the total number of points that each campus has accumulated then is determined to be a proportion of the whole of all of the degrees awarded by all of our public universities and our community and technical colleges. And whatever that proportion is the proportion of the pot of money, which in this model would be $18 million, that would come to your campus. And one other feature of this is it's based on a 3-year rolling average. So if the legislature were to adopt this and fund it, in the first year, we know, because we would use the years 2011, 2012, and 2013 to determine that average number of points. In the second year of the biennium, 2011 numbers would get dropped off, and 2014 numbers would be added. And so it's possible that the proportion that any campus earns in the first year might change in the second year because relative to the other campuses, it either produced more or less points, for lack of a better term. So the performance funding proposal is based on that set of kind of mathematical equations. As you can see in the second year, the amount of money would double because the money that would be earned in the first year would go into the base funding for each of the campuses based on whatever they earned, and a new $18 million in this proposal would be available in year 2. In terms of the land grant mission funds, as you know, Kentucky State University and the University of Kentucky are land grant institutions. They have significant responsibilities beyond educating students in terms of providing extension services across the state, particularly in rural Kentucky. Those funds have been cut along with everything else over the last several years, and so this is a small way of helping restore those funds. And finally, the Kentucky Adult Learner Initiative is something that we will be calling Commonwealth College. It's an effort to provide online baccalaureate level degree programs to working age adults. And Aaron, if you want to explain that very quickly.
Well, just to clarify the population we're going after, we have about, it depends on the measurement you want to use, we know a minimum of 500,000 upward to 1 million students or people without a baccalaureate degree who would need one. This is going after that population. It's designed around a competency-based process based on KCTCS's Learn on Demand, where you move on when ready, if you will. And we would, in this particular Commonwealth College model, look at institutions, 4-year institutions who wanted to buy into the process during the last 60 hours that would be directed toward a needed workplace degree. You would have to have a minimum of 24 hours going in, a minimum age of 23. It would not be targeted toward the folk you already have on campus. The workplace degrees would be co-designed, if you will, not co-designed, but co-argued for by employers as well as the 4-year campuses and discussion about what is needed at the time. We hope to, within the next 2 years, have 3 of these degrees up and running. KCTCS would do the first 60 hours, if you will, in Learn on Demand format, and the institutions who buy into this would do the last 60 hours. Now, it is a process where you can weed yourself in. You don't have to come in. Eastern wouldn't have to come in if they didn't want to come in, but they would have the opportunity, if they so decided, falling under the criteria. The campuses all were involved in putting together the bones of this program over the last year, so your faculty and staff have been intricately involved in the process along with us. Now, we are, Representative Simpson put in the budget bill a while back calling on us to do this, and I'm sure he may want to respond in a few minutes about this. But this is an exciting venture, I think, for the state of Kentucky. We have so many of these population groups that are in need to skill up or to get skills, and this is designed to do exactly that.
There's also one other point, and then I'll move on. By offering these programs fully online, it will help us address an emerging understanding of the needs of people in rural Kentucky who do not live in easy proximity to any one of our baccalaureate campuses. And if you remember the debate in the legislature 2 years ago about whether or not the University of Pikeville should become public, part of the underlying issues there were the lack of resources in terms of baccalaureate level educational resources in these pockets throughout Kentucky, particularly in the east, but not exclusively there, across the southern border and out into the western part of the state. This would help address that as long as you have access to the internet. Let me move on quickly because I'm watching the time and I know we're close. The Bucks for Brains program is a program, as I said, that was developed in the early 2000s. It was originally designed to do two things. Number one, to encourage campuses to grow endowment, and number two, to use the earnings from those endowments to attract top-notch research faculty from around the world to our campuses. The state, up to this point, has invested over $400 million in that program, and this is a request to the legislature to renew its investment in this program, and we've asked for a total of $95 million. $90 million would be available for the four-year institutions, and what is new in this is a $5 million increment for KCTCS. They are not research institutions, as you know, but they are at a point in their careers or their maturity where they are developing foundations, they are going out and seeking philanthropic support, and this would be a way to provide matching dollars. Just like in the Bucks for Brains program, each of the dollars that comes from the state to a campus has to be matched by that campus's effort at raising philanthropic support for this kind of work. So that's what that's all about. In terms of the capital proposal, there was a study that was done back in 2007 where every campus was reviewed to determine what its needs were, both in terms of preserving its current assets and considering new construction based on campus growth and development plans. What that study demonstrated was that across Kentucky's universities, and we just had it updated this year, there is over $10 billion of need. About 55% of that is in asset preservation projects. About 45% of that would be attributable to new construction. The percentages vary from campus to campus depending on the age of buildings and the condition of those buildings. In any event, what we have done is recommended to the legislature that they consider essentially a 6-year plan so that the amount of funding we're asking for in this first biennium would be tied to a 6-year commitment that the campuses would fulfill in terms of doing the construction that is necessary both in asset preservation and in new construction, but tied to those ratios so that we get away from what we've done over the last decade, which is we've spent about $5 on new buildings for every $1 we've spent on asset preservation projects. And we need to get back to or get to this ratio so that we appropriately protect the assets that we already have. So the request is essentially $600 million in this first biennium of this 6-year project. Obviously, $600 million times 3 biennia is not going to get you to $10 billion, but it is a pretty healthy start. And this is not cash, this is money that would be debt funded. And so what you'd have to calculate is the debt service to support $600 million. There's a rough equation that it's about 10% of that on an annual basis. It's really a little bit less because interest rates are as attractive as they are today, and construction costs are relatively low. So it's a good time to be building, and we would hope that the legislature would consider this. In addition, there's a $60 million request for technology, and that would be spread across the campuses, and you can see in the maroon columns the amount of these funds that would flow to Eastern. These are actually the projects that are on the list, and you would know them far better than I. But at that point, David, we'll stop and allow you to move on.
Thank you, President King. What I'm going to do is I'm going to allow our legislators to have some comment. I'm going to give Representative Simpson, Chairman Simpson, the opportunity to first kind of give a response to this, as he has for some time now been through these budget presentations. I've heard him speak very eloquently about performance funding, about some of the things we need to do with adult learners, and he's told at least once a very compelling story about how our universities need to make sure that we're engaging our students and graduating our students from our institutions. So with that, I'm going to let Representative Simpson make a few comments, then I'm going to invite the rest of our panel to make some comments, and then we can have some question and answer opportunity between our panelists and the CPE staff. If that's...
David, if I can, I want to apologize to all of you in advance. I'm going to have to leave at around 4:15, 4:20 to drive to St. Catherine's College, where I'm supposed to address their board tonight. But Aaron is here and will, I'm sure, respond quite capably.
Ask the tough questions before he leaves.
Representative Simpson.
Thank you, David. Before we make our comments, let me express my sincere thanks for being afforded an opportunity to travel to Richmond to participate. I think these exchanges are so valuable in the promulgation of public policy. I was talking to the head of the Senate faculty earlier, and one of the things we don't, at least I have not had an opportunity to do since I became the chair of the Budget Review Subcommittee, is to interact with faculty. I have the great joy of interacting with individuals like Dr. Benson, and I enjoy it thoroughly, but I think it's very important for me to also create a channel of communications with the members of the faculty to see what your values are as we go on our way to promulgate policies. Now, relative to the presentation, let me tell you where I think we're at. These are times that really try the souls of men, because when we talk about higher education, it's directly connected to our ability to generate funds to finance it. And as you know, notwithstanding the fact that we entered the recession in '07 and we got out probably in '09, our economy in Kentucky has not rebounded to the point where we can invest the funds that we ought to invest. And that's all born of a very simple notion. Our Constitution creates our financing mechanism for taxation. It was adopted in the last decade of the 19th century. And quite candidly, it doesn't work. It will not provide the revenue to permit, in my opinion, the members of the General Assembly and the executive branch to do the people's work. We need to embark upon the course of reforming our tax code so we will have the additional revenues so we can meet these very, very reasonable proposals being suggested not only by CPA but also by our friends in the primary and secondary education and social services. Until we do that, it's going to be very, very difficult to meet these new challenges that has been put forth today. Relative to the overall notion, relative to financing of universities, it's, in my mind, it's not really financing, it's really an investment. I mean, Peabody, I believe, said education is a debt owed by the current generation to the future generation. That's how I look upon higher education funding, along with primary and secondary education funding. It's not a line item in the budget. It's a responsibility. Now, in order to meet that responsibility, we have to make some tough decisions. And those decisions are very, very difficult because in tax reform, you have winners and losers. But notwithstanding that, it's not acceptable for us as legislators to tell the public in the public in Kentucky that we're not going to do it. That is no consensus. It's no challenge. It's no sense in that. We have to have the courage, and I would hope that as Kentuckians, as individuals who are partaking in the education fiber of Kentucky, that you will encourage the members of the General Assembly, your legislators, and all your friends' legislators to step up to the plate and provide the funds necessary. Because if we don't do that, we will never, ever increase our ratings in Kentucky. One of our great challenges here is our workforce. Unless we have a well-educated workforce, guess what? Companies are not going to come here. What comes first, the chicken or the egg? In this instance, I think funding for education definitely comes first. So I'll go into the details relative to the presentations as offered, but I think that overview is something I think is very important for me to communicate to you in hopes that it will generate some questions from you. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Simpson. Representative Smart?
I too would like to say what Representative Simpson said on behalf of all of us. Thank you so much for this opportunity. I may be a little bit different from him in that I make just about daily visits to the campus, whether it's to drop into a performance here or to drop in a classroom to visit or to walk the campus or to stop by or call the president to tell him what he needs to do. But I am enjoying my tenure with the legislature. I thank Representative Mobberly for his work, but I do not thank him for the position that he's left me in. So that's why I call him quite often to mentor and to tutor me. I use some words when I go to Frankfurt, history. I think when we look back into the history of Kentucky, and I'm sure all of you have read Bill Ellis's book on history of education in Kentucky, that you will see that Kentuckians, we tend to make the same mistake over and over and over again. So we do need a modernized tax code. We don't have the money. It's just like in your individual budgets, it's just like when I was on the city commission, there's only so much revenue that we are able to garnish to do the types of things that we want to do. So my job is to go to Frankfurt. I use a technique I call dumb and sweet, and I'm up and down the halls trying to find out what's going on because I want to make sure that Eastern Kentucky University and the 81st District gets their fair share. And Dr. King and Mr. Thompson, Dr. Thompson will also tell you that I hound on them quite a bit, asking a lot of questions to make sure. But you must realize that there are almost 90,000 people in Madison County. In each one of our districts, about 45,000 people. And so those people have needs too. And those were the things that Representative Simpson said, that as legislatures, we have all types of groups that are coming to us with their needs. Now, I can use that history, and I add to that another word called experiences. And I recognized last year in the legislature that I'm the oldest woman in the caucus. And so I self-appointed myself as the mother of the caucus. And so, you know, sometimes it's hard to say no to your mother. So I use that to my best advantage in trying to educate from a historical perspective what families need, what young people need, and bringing the experiences that I've had through my tenure in higher education with land-grant university, to bring that forward to other younger representatives who may not have those experiences, but who will have the ability and hopefully the opportunity to have those experiences later on. Lastly, I would say to you that in all of the experiences that I've had, I've always worked with men who said they didn't have money. It's an age-old thing they tell us. They don't want us to spend their money. But we can do a lot of things with and without money. So the last thing I would say is I never like to waste a good crisis. And we are in a crisis situation. So I say be positive and look for ways that we can get around that to make the Kentucky for the next generation better than it was for our generation.
Thank you, Representative Smart. Didn't know you were going to give away all your trade secrets, but you know, these guys will be looking out for that now. Representative Shell.
Yeah, I know how to get around it now. No, I appreciate what Representative, can you all hear me? How close does that have to come? I appreciate what Representative Simpson and Representative Smart said with their words about, there it is, about higher education and the importance and the need of it. I graduated as an alumnus here at EKU not too long ago in the ag business degree is what I received whenever I left here. At Garrett County, whenever I went to high school, I was fortunate enough to be able to take the AP classes and things. So whenever I started off to higher education, I actually took most of my first and second year over at Danville at an extended campus. I was not a traditional student in any form. And then after getting that, I came over here to the Richmond campus and received my degree in agribusiness. And very fortunate enough to have that. My dad and my grandfather always told me that, you know, you never know in farming, because that's what I do now whenever you'll need something to fall back on. And so my degree was not necessarily something that I had to have to farm with, but it was something that I had to have for my future just in case something happened. And so I'm very fortunate and thankful to be able to have received my degree from Eastern Kentucky University, and it's been a good degree that I've been able to have. Representative Simpson and Representative Smart are very right in the situations that we've got with our government and the levels of spending that we will be able to have, and very right in knowing that we have to have some kind of tax reform moving into this next session. From all the reporting that I've seen, it doesn't look like we're actually going to tackle that. We're going to kick the can down the road for another year. Our Speaker in the House has said that he doesn't know that we're going to be tackling that, so I'm very disappointed in that, and I know that Representative Smart and Simpson are also very disappointed in those words, and you all should be as well, because that's something that you as citizens and as constituents of ours, we should be tackling the tough issues in Frankfort, whether it's tax reform, higher education, spending, or funding, and making sure that we're doing that job to the best of our abilities. And I just want to introduce myself a little bit, not being the youngest member and one of the newest members or the newest member on this panel. I don't have as much budget experience as what I will have next year whenever you all offer for me to come and sit on the panel. So I'll have a little bit more to say in that next upcoming year. Right now, I just know that I'm learning as much as I possibly can, spending as much time with Dr. Benson and others as I possibly can to make sure that I know what the needs of Eastern Kentucky University is and of our higher education system. Thank you.
Carpenter.
Can I just say echo all that and be done? That's probably what everybody else would like for me to say. I'll keep my comments short, but I appreciate Eastern, and you know what a nice opportunity it is to be just a couple miles from my office here in Richmond and sit in a facility like this. How many universities across the Commonwealth would like to have the opportunity to sit in a state-of-the-art facility to experience the arts like we have here in Richmond, Kentucky, and what it does for Madison County and the growth? Representative Smart was talking about our population change, and from the time Harry and and Ed were there many years ago to today's date, the population has expanded greatly, and a lot of that is attributed to Eastern Kentucky University. And we're glad that our population has grown by a couple, 5 or 6 or 7, with Dr. Benson and his family, because it's been a great asset for us. I added several kids there, Dr. Benson. But we're happy to have you, and you know what an asset he has been already to our community, and it's so nice to see him when you go to events engaging with our community. And what I say is the way Eastern does is how Madison County does, because our economic growth is viable because of Eastern Kentucky University's growth and success. Because we're fortunate, you know, Representative Simpson's a good friend from Northern Kentucky. He can tell you Madison County, people are jealous of Madison County and Northern Kentucky because we have opportunities for jobs. And at the end of the day, that's what all of us are here for, is to create opportunities for people to have future education, to have better employment for themselves and for their families. And that's why our commitment, just like Bob was saying earlier, has to be to help education, because that's our future growth and our future opportunities to see Madison County and Kentucky grow. I've got 2 little ones, and I wonder if they'll be able to do as good as I've done if the path continues as it has now. Because I'm not for sure, when growing up, that I was hoping to always do better than my dad and my grandfather, but that time is getting to be where you're not for sure if that's going to be able to happen if we don't do some things to make sure their path is headed in the right direction. And so the reason that I got involved in political was not for any glory that you get from it, because we all know there's not much glory, but because you want to be able to sit at a table like this to make a decision, to be able to help families and to be able to make a difference for the future of Kentucky. And so that's why it's motivated me to do it, because there's highs and lows being involved in the process. And the low right now is trying to figure out how you can fund education and all the civil services that are needed to make sure Kentucky goes the way it needs to. As you can see, $9 billion of a $20 billion, that's with a B, budget goes towards education. So sometimes I use the words effective and efficient. Are we being effective and efficient with the dollars that we are being allocated now in the education system? And I think Eastern Kentucky University is revamping and done some things. You look back a couple years ago to where we are now, they reduced the budget, took some things out of the budget, and what a difference it's making on the campus, because they're being effective and efficient with those dollars. And I think that's what all of Kentucky, I think the governor even gave applaud to Eastern Kentucky University for doing those things. And I think that's what all of us have to do throughout the state to make sure we're using those dollars as wisely as possible. Tax reform is a tough word, especially when you're talking about election cycle. Nobody wants to stick their neck on a chopping block. Took my kids that Freebird, that turkey movie last night, and that's basically what politicians feel like when you talk about tax reform. Everybody wants to run from it, but if you're not willing to make those tough decisions, why are you there? We have to be there to make those tough decisions that affect not only today, but affect 10 or 15 years down the road. And you know, we talk a lot about in the Senate about broadening the base. We had a senator from Tennessee come the other day and talked about tax reform in Tennessee. And tax reform in Tennessee has done very well because they broaden the base. They expand it for more people. Not they tax them more, but they get a lesser percentage from more services. And that may be something that we have to look at in Kentucky. I don't have the answer for it, but I know that we have to look out of the box to make sure that we've got Kentucky headed in the right direction, or we're going to continue to see these shortfalls that we have now going forward. So once again, thank you for letting us be a part of this panel. It's good to see where the rubber hits the road. Sometimes when you're in an office or you're up in the legislature and somebody's telling you something and we're at a closed caucus, what the guy beside you or the lady beside you says may sound good, but they're not in the classroom affecting lives and the teachers, whether that's at an elementary school or right here dealing with 18 to 25-year-olds. I wasn't 25 when I graduated, by the way. I just want to throw that out there. But.
Thank you, Senator Carpenter. With that in mind, Richard, I think we'll entertain some questions from the audience. I know President King is on a. So if you've got some specific questions for President King, let's make sure that we get those vetted first, and we'll have some discussion hopefully.
is, first of all, we need to have tax reform. We need to be smarter in the way we use this money. A lot's been done recently. A lot's been done recently to coordinate better K-12 and higher education, and to be sure that those students who come out of high school are prepared to go to college. And that's being done better all the time, but there needs to be more work on that. The places in the state where the money can be better used in many cases are outside of the Golden Triangle. From northern Kentucky, we're right on the edge of the Golden Triangle. But eastern Kentucky and many parts of western Kentucky and even little pockets in the so-called Golden Triangle are really struggling to find money to spend on education and to get those kids out of high school and get them into college. So my suggestion is for the legislators and for the administrators is to find a way to spend money smarter all the time, to find a way to reform the tax code, and to realize that we have all these disadvantages. We are a small state, and we're still relatively poor. And we've still got, hundreds of thousands of people that have been denied for one reason or another, either because of where they live, or because of their economic circumstances, or because of even their race, advantages that everybody here has had all their lives, chance to go to college, chance to get a job. And it's a daunting task, and you folks need to work real hard. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I don't know that we had a specific question in there, but
A little speechifying, I think.
That's right. Since President King is leaving again, we'll kind of this morning we facilitated a session. We kind of called it a rapid fire opportunity. So if we have some specific questions amongst the group, CPE legislators, either one, let's try to get those. Let's try to get those out there.
Let me try. I will. I see Nancy. Let me try a question before you get away, Mr. King. Yeah. You were talking about the performance-based budgeting, and it seems like you all were drilling down pretty finely to determine what degrees are worth out in the work world. And then I got a little lost. You were talking about how different institutions might get a reimbursement, is probably the wrong word, but be funded based on their cost of producing that degree. And you sort of laid out research ones and regionals and others. I got lost in there somewhere, so I might have had the wrong impression, but is there how well do you drill down into that? Does it cost more to train a teacher at UK than it does at Eastern?
Well, the argument at UK is yes.
Yes, I'm sure it is.
That particular element of the formula that we've used is done by sector. And so we took, I think it was, I'm trying to remember, Aaron, was it the average faculty salary at each institute? I think it was that gross. I mean, it's not a very fine-tuned element, but it was something that the research campuses insisted be included in the model. The real issue, I guess, is the relationship between the degrees that are being earned by our students. So we started with an associate degree being worth 1.0, and then everything is a multiple of that. And the cost of instruction piece adds, if the degree is earned at a research campus, it might mean that the bachelor's degree, which at the comprehensives, let's say relative to the 1.0 is worth 1.2. At a research campus, it might be worth 1.45, something like that.
And I guess that was the point I was getting at. Yeah. It seems like we drill down pretty finely on one side,
right?
But then on the cost, not so much. And I would probably buy UK's argument in medicine and perhaps a number of fields, but in teacher preparation, where I come from, I've taught at Eastern, I've taught at UK. If there's a difference there, I don't get it. And it would be nice for our ability to recoup money to do what we need to do here if that were also fine-tuned.
Well, let me say this. There is a commitment on our part to engage, starting next year, in a much more comprehensive assessment of how you would build a model that wouldn't simply apply to the $18 million, but potentially could apply to the entire fund of dollars coming to higher education. And in building such a model, you would, of necessity, take into account much more than this very simple, I mean, it may not sound simple, but relatively speaking, it's a much more simplistic way of trying to figure out a reasonable way to distribute a small pot of money. But that effort, that I've described, would look at a number of things. It would look at enrollment. It would look at mission. That's where you'd get into this cost of instruction stuff at a finer grain, and look at performance. And performance might be things that go beyond degree production. But for the purposes of this proposal to the legislature, and to give them a sense of how you could start to implement some kind of performance-related funding, this would be a way to do it, and that's why we chose to do it this way.
Thank you, President King. I think Representative Simpson had some thoughts on that.
Actually, is this on? Can you hear me? No?
Yes.
You can? Okay. I have a lot of opinions on performance outbased funding. You know, a lot of states are going to that. And that doesn't mean that we should do it. But I think we need to have a discussion relative to its merits. We applaud the CPE's proposal, but in some instances, that's the first time I've heard the proposal today. I think it's perhaps too complex. As a non-educator, performance or outcome-based funding is really predicated on very, very simplistic models. For instance, in the old days, everyone told us in the General Assembly how many students you had coming in. And that's very important. If you're attracting students, that means you can do your mission. But in the 21st century, that's not the information we need anymore. We want to know how many students you have coming out, how quickly they're coming out, what they look at, and are they working within their degree areas, for instance. Those are the information I seek. That is information I think that we need to create an incentives for all universities to achieve a higher and better outcome, per se. Now, it's very frustrating for me not to be able to articulate that we can embark upon the path of outcome-based funding. The realities are, the state, we have a multiplicities of issues that's confronting us. Pension costs, Eastern Kentucky, the cold severance money is going away, our health insurance is going up. But at some point in time, we have to have the discussion, and my premise has always been, why wait until the times improve to have this discussion? Let's have a dialogue now. Let's see what's the pros and cons. What's your input? What's your opinion relative to that? And that's why I think it's important for us to, notwithstanding our precarious financial circumstance, to embrace the concept and to engage in this public discussion.
Dr. Day, let me add one, maybe two quick pieces. First of all, Representative Simpson, in the core of this, that's exactly what we're doing. It's fairly simplistic. It's on degrees that we're leaving you with and how fast we're leaving you with those degrees. The second piece, and this is an important piece, it also goes to establish some of the Kentucky uglies in higher education in K-12 we haven't done a very good job with. And that is producing more STEM degrees in a particular area that would work in Kentucky, and actually working toward getting more people of color through higher education system with more quality faster. So that's an important piece too. And you can get lost in this cost of instruction that really, in the end, was a negotiating factor that would not come down to taking much away or adding much to almost anybody, to be honest with you. So I wanted to make that a clear point. The other piece too, and as a faculty member, I would argue this if I was in your audience, what about quality? We've gotten lost in the quantity. What about all the inputs that we have? Well, one of the pieces that we know that takes into consideration of increasing degree attainment is the faculty input with students in and out of the classroom, as well as the advisor input. So a lot of the quality of making this happen at a larger degree, the money that we're asking for extra in this, and this is performance funded based on added money that we're asking for. Legislature can decide to do whatever they will, but is to actually go to those high input quality strategies. So I guess it sounds complicated, but in reality, it's really not. The base model here for this goes to degree attainment. And it's about, just like once upon a time it was people coming in, this is now basically measuring people going out at the associate, baccalaureate, professional, and doctoral and master's degree levels.
If I might add, Dr. Thompson, it's important to measure the people going out, but our mission has to embrace far more. It's what they are doing with those degrees once they get out. It's not going to serve Kentucky very well if we are producing degrees that are not producing the income possibilities. One of the things my good friend Representative Mobley used to say when he was in our chair, when we embarked upon higher education reform, we made a tremendous commitment. It was the opposite of what we're doing now. We're not meeting our responsibilities. In the earliest portions of this century, we were champions. We invested heavily in higher education. We did that predicated in small measure on the return that was promised, that if you invest in higher education, that we would train a workforce, they would be higher paid, and as a consequence, our tax revenues would increase. Well, we made the investment, but our tax revenues never increased. Therefore, we got to have this dialogue and this to preclude a disconnect from occurring. So one of the things that I'm interested in is seeing what our grads are doing with their degrees. Are they being successful? And that information should be shared with our future students so they can embark upon their selected fields with a clear understanding of the economic realities that may confront them relative to job opportunities.
Fully agree, by the way, no argument there, and I will tell you that the campuses are starting to be engaged in that very activity.
Thank you.
Aaron, I have a question. Actually, it was for President King, but maybe you can answer it since he's not here. It also has to do with performance funding and perhaps a clarification question. I'm concerned with the formula that President King gave us that with performance funding that we could be on a slippery slope to doing away with programs that don't have to do with STEM or health. Is that a correct assessment? Is that if you would answer that, please. And then I'm also interested in knowing how the other side, the legislators, feel about that.
Well, no, it's not. And what we try to do with STEM and health is to do exactly one of the pieces that Representative Simpson just voiced. But this is an add-on. This is a bonus, if you will. That is. I mean, the same argument could be made as a faculty member. I love to have these kind of critical discussions. The same argument could be made with what we're doing with the bonus, whether or not we're going to get rid of white students and only have minorities. And I don't think that would be a valid argument. What we're saying is that there are crucial areas that we have to concentrate on in addition to all other things that we're doing well. Even in professional degrees, employers are telling us all the time, we need to create more critical thinking, problem solving, folk that can work with people on the ground sort of thing. So having that conversation in which we're having clearly doesn't indicate that. In our new program review and program approval model, we make sure that we've added many more variables. When I went to CPE in 2009, I made sure that we start working on doing exactly away with some of that philosophy that in fact the liberal arts still very much is an important piece of the puzzle, even though they may get out and not make nearly as much money. We know that not having that background surely will create maybe a highly skilled person that can do the job. And that's what employers are telling us. So no, absolutely not. We're looking at incentivizing you extra, if you will, beyond the base performance funding to do those high impact, high employable, and in many cases high wage, while at the same time getting more people who have been disenfranchised from higher education in the loop and us doing more impactful engagement to making sure that that happens.
Hello, Jason Marion. I'm a faculty member in our environmental health science program. And I have one question I'm going to get to, but the first thing, I do have some reservations about the R&D funds, and I hope that the University of Kentucky and the University of Louisville and Western to some extent do choose to use some of those dollars east in Kentucky, way east, you know, the parts that go 2.5 hours southeast of here. The Mountain Caucus refers to the Winchester Wall, and I'd like to make sure, you know, as a person who lives in Kentucky, pays taxes in Kentucky, that we care about that part of the world. UK and Louisville invest a lot in biomedical research and emphasize cures and treatments, but we need to be emphasizing preventing disease and preventing all those types of things. And I know that they have worked in that area. I just hope the Commonwealth gets its return on investment in the mountains. And then one thing that I think that we could definitely do as a CPE and as a legislature is free up the university administrators from some of the bureaucratic tasks that go on so that our leaders and our faculty can be more visionary and more creative as opposed to getting caught up in the just, you know, well, just, you guys, people who are faculty and administrators at the university probably know those things. We have to justify building cafeterias and residence halls. Agency bonding authority, has that been addressed in Kentucky yet? I know the Honorable David Williams is more honorable now than before, and agency bonding with Senator Dameron had been going on for years, and that gentleman was a roadblock on that. I think 46 of 50 states have got it now, so why should we be debating cafeterias and residence halls when we could be debating medical centers and research? And then lastly, you know, I kind of attacked the legislature. I'll attack the CP a little bit.
Thanks, man.
I don't know if the CP should be, this is just a question, but I don't know the merits of the CPE doing program reviews all the way down to the departmental level. I think universities should be able to keep tabs on their own shop and maybe at least maybe delve down to the college level. And we spend a lot of time as faculty members and as departments dealing with the minutia, and we've got bigger issues than worrying about how many, you know, environmental health science graduates we've got. I think the colleges and universities can do that. So that's just some questions. My real question is, do we have agency bonding authority yet? And if not, why?
Well, this past session, there was a bill introduced and passed that authorized specific projects for universities to fund. You referenced Representative Dameron and his bill that would permit universities to use agency funds. That's the funds generated through your cafeterias, your housing, to bond your own projects. I've always been supportive of that. But having said that, I understand very well President Williams' reservation. His reservation was born very simply of the notion that notwithstanding universities are standalone, his concern was in the event of a default, if you use your agency bond authority haphazardly, the state would probably back you up. Therefore, his position, although I disagreed, was that in order to be responsible stewards of our revenue, we have to ensure that the universities do not overspend. You know, we've often heard about the propensities of universities to build palaces for multiplicities of reasons. Therefore, yeah, I'm not that hard on Senator Williams. I mean, he had a tough job, although I didn't agree with him in many instances. It was a basis for that. But the quick answer is no. Representative Dameron's bill has never been passed. Now that President Williams is now a judge, perhaps it would. But let me preface that with it's a bill that's been filed. I think it's Representative Bowen that wants to put a cap on our debt. And that's a legitimate concern that we have to be aware of. We cannot permit our debt, overall debt, reach the point where it's going to affect our bond rating. That's going to raise more money from our general fund, which we can't afford. So it's a complex scenario, whatnot, and we're going to work through it. I'm quite sure Bob's going to file his bill again, and hopefully we can reach a common middle ground to afford universities some flexibility.
And we obviously agree that we would like to have that freedom to do that, and we are following the bill. As a matter of fact, we've delivered. So we hope to have that. On program Approval and Program Review Higher Education Reform Act of 1997 calls us to do that, to be honest with you, and I could argue the validity of that all day long. What I will argue, though, is that the new program approval, program review, I don't know how you get it any place other than down to the departmental level, since faculty are the people that build programs. I mean, I'm not sure where else you would start. But what we've done, though, we've expanded to a more holistic way of looking at it, other than the way we used to do it before of only looking at how many people you graduate from your program. We don't do that anymore. We do it from a much more participatory, if you will, between CPE and your campus, and also with the things that we're asking you to think about doing in order to increase the viability of your program. One of the things, whether we like to admit it or not, we are in a new date and time. We have to look at programs in light of budgets, in light of a variety of things. Do we have too many programs? If I was the provost, I would ask that question, no doubt about it. I mean, and are the programs been as effective as you want them to be? And you would have to look at it from a variety of variables, no doubt about it, but you have to look at it. And one of the best ways of looking at it, in my argument, is the way that we're doing it now, because it gives you a multiplicity of ways to think about not only if your program is viable, but how you can make it more viable. So it's not a thumbs up or thumbs down like it once was, unless you're not doing the things that you need to do. We also take very much into account what we think the future of a program is. One quick example is KCTCS had a lot of people enrolled in very popular programs over the last many years, and they decided to get rid of them simply because they realized there were no jobs waiting for these people. Now that was tough because it cut into their enrollment and into their budget, but they made the decision based on the long-term viability of their particular institution. So but we're called to do that, so we're trying to do it as inclusive as possible.
Couple more quick ones, I think.
Sure.
I'm Nancy McKinney. I had the privilege of serving as the faculty representative to the Council on Post-Secondary Education the past 4 years. And in my role, I heard many times about the budgetary problems of higher education. One thing I remember Dr. King saying more than once was that two of the biggest reasons we don't have enough money for higher education or other education are that we spend a great deal on prisons and Medicaid. And I'm wondering, this is mostly directed at the legislative representatives, do you see any movement on prison reform such that we'll not incarcerate so many people for nonviolent offenses, which would presumably save a lot of money? And also, if you have any comments about the matter of Medicaid, do you foresee any improvement in that situation as a result of the health care reforms going on right now?
I'll address it just a little bit about, well, we actually did a couple of years ago, had House Bill 463 that was to try to slow down recidivism and also put less folks behind bars for crimes that were nonviolent. And it's made a difference in our budget across Kentucky. Unfortunately, we're not seeing a tremendous amount of that cost savings yet. But I mean, it had major holdbacks from our judiciary branches. You know, our judges here locally and some of our prosecuting attorneys had concerns with it, but it has made a difference. Small steps, baby steps, because we're just, unfortunately, we have so many issues with incarceration in Kentucky with drug abuse and drug use and stealing now. But we're trying to we tried with 463 to make those processes for people that did nonviolent offenses less, so we didn't incarcerate so many people, because we were spending more on incarceration and holding them in jail than we're spending on educating our youth, and that's one of our major concerns. Medicaid is another major hurdle. With the Affordable Health Care Act, we're all on the edge of our seats trying to figure out what that's going to do to the bottom line of the budget. We all know that the health reform is like tax reform. It's needed, but there's a cost associated with it that nobody understands what that cost is going to be. I don't necessarily agree with Nancy Pelosi. Just incorporate it and try to see how it affects you after it's in place. I don't think that's what we need to do. I think we need to know what we're getting ourselves into before we sign the dotted line. And I think we're starting to see what we're getting ourselves into. Expansion and Medicaid is going to be a major issue for us because we're adding so many more people to the roll. Medicaid is going to expand about 400,000 people if the Affordable Health Care Act is implemented like we've seen it go currently. And that comes at a cost to all of us, and at the end of the day, that affects us just like what you're talking about. And we don't have the crystal ball that has those answers, but we are addressing those on a daily issue because we understand those are so many of our tax revenue are going to those things. And at the end of the day, that doesn't bring any revenue to the state to be able to see it go forward. And I'm sure Representative Simpson can add to that.
Yeah. The bill that was referenced is really a national model. It was introduced by Representative Tilley and a senator who's now a judge, Tom Jensen. In fact, Representative Tilley was in Washington last week or 2 weeks ago explaining it. It's really a national model. It's really helping us tremendously. Now, the sad thing about it is where a lot of the savings is being eroded because of the drug problem that we have. And our prisons are now becoming treatment centers for individuals who are addicted to drugs, so we're going to have to cross that barrier. Our Medicaid problem, as you can relate, as I mentioned earlier, with the onset of the recession in '07, our Medicaid just increased readily for those 4 years, just by large bounds because people weren't working as a consequence. We had more Kentuckians applying. It's my hopes that once it does rebound, the jobs are not coming back as of yet, but once they do come back, hopefully that's going to reduce the rows so we can devote more of our funds to other areas of government.
And I might add on the Affordable Care Act, Kentucky was the model, and just about every day when you turn on national news, they mention the model for Kentucky, and I think we owe that to our Commissioner of Insurance, who is a lady, and our Commissioner for Health and Human Services, because they work together. And one of the things that I am hopeful, and I saw this through my work in city government, is that through that Affordable Health Care Act in Kentucky, with the number of jobs that it will create, private sector jobs in the health realm, that we can see some returns come in and additional revenues therefore that would offset that.
And lastly, we can talk about the increase in Medicaid, and that's a very legitimate concern. I'm not dismissing that. It's going to increase the amount we are going to have to devote. But the fact of the matter is, the 600-pound gorilla is this. Health care, individuals without health insurance, is a cost now. We don't see it. The cost is being transferred now with people who pay or people with insurance. Hopefully with the Affordable Care Act, that's going to negate that. Now, I'm not an expert in it. I've not read the bill. I don't profess to be an expert in it. But I think any policy that's going to result in more individuals getting early care and preventive care in the long run is going to endure to the benefit of the state.
Let's take one more.
Hi, my name is Benton Shirey. I'm the Director of University Advising here, and I work with the most at-risk students on campus. And I guess my concern is that having worked with those students for about 10 years now, I know that our students are capable of doing as well as anybody else's students with the proper support. But they do require more support, more academic support, more social support, more emotional support than other students out there at some of the flagship universities. And I would say to you that my concern going forward is that we'll somehow forget about those students in our effort to get more, and that we'll forget about the fact that it takes more resources to support those students to be successful. I fully believe and I know that they can be successful. It takes more time, They generally take longer to get to a degree. They have issues where they stop out. They have generational poverty and issues there that sometimes they have to go home to take care of a family member, or something happens where they have a death in the family and they're gone for a while. They stop out, drop out, then they come back. But eventually these students can earn a degree and can make a contribution. So I would say to you that if you look at those students that we have, that you don't look at them with respect to the numbers, that you look at them as with respect to what we're doing is we're giving them an opportunity to change not only their lives, but the lives of their children and their grandchildren. That what we're doing is we're giving someone who does not have a future by the support and by the encouragement and by the work that we do to make those students and to help them be successful. So I would encourage you to support those students that are in what I call the hairy middle, that those students who need more support and they need more resources to be successful. And they can be successful and will be successful, but we just need your help. And the students that choose Eastern are those that we can work with. We just need the resources to do that to help them be successful. Thank you.
Can I touch on that?
Absolutely.
You know, Kentucky's a poor state. It's no way we will ever turn our back on the needy. I mean, we can't do that. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy if we attempt to do it. Until we educate to a large degree the majority of our population in the most efficient manner possible, we're never going to grow as a state. Now, having said that, let me preface my comment. I'm not an educator. I'm an attorney. I'm an old city manager. I see things in black and white terms. I don't know if the portal that a lot of our students who are underprivileged are going through is really in their best interest. The best portal for higher education for those in need, in my opinion, is community colleges. One, it's less expensive. As we sit here, we're dealing with a country where our students are facing over $1 trillion worth of student loan debt. Therefore, to funnel kids to traditional comprehensive universities when they can better have a higher degree of success if they go to a community college, I think is wrong. I think that's ill-advised. And even relative to the issue of remediation, I know all the comprehensive campuses and I know all the research campuses, they want these students, they're going to get tuition, they're going to get, I'm not saying that's the motive, but I think we do these students a disservice. I think remediation could probably best be addressed at our community colleges. I mean, we have 68 locations where these kids can be channeled, because what happens to kids, and I'm a poor kid from a city, what happens if you don't do well when you first start college, that's what we talk about freshman retention, it's a higher likelihood that you're never going to succeed. So why would you place a student who might be at risk in an environment that is a higher likelihood to fail? Therefore, what we have to do is not only make the commitment to make the financial commitment, but we also have to adopt policies to ensure that we're going to create the highest likelihood of these students to be successful.
I agree with Representative Simpson. I know you got a second, but I hate to pass this up. That we have to make sure when kids get out of school that they have their debt load is not tremendous. I'm a banker by trade. I count dollars. That's what I think about. That's how my mind works. But there's also lots of at-risk students that are right here in central Kentucky, and what our mission was directed at Eastern Kentucky University, that need to make sure that they have an opportunity to go to a university like this to experience things that they might not get to experience in their home communities, to make them better citizens for Kentucky. So we got to make sure that there's some students that just can't do it, and we don't need to, I think in my time in legislature, sometimes universities got caught up in getting students enrolled because they get to, I'm going to say, milk the system to bring those dollars into their system. But at the end of the day, a student doesn't get either graduate in a timely fashion or doesn't get a quality job, and they don't get on the tax roll that we need for them to do to put back in the system that they got from. And so I think we have to be very careful that at-risk students are accommodated, And also understand that not all at-risk students need to come to regional universities. There's some that, just like Representative Simpson said, that some of our community colleges can provide those services and they can live at home. But there's also opportunities where students need to come to a central location or to a regional university to experience things that they're not going to get to experience at their home to make them better citizens, and they end up staying here in our community and being great stewards. So.
Dr. Thompson.
Add 2 or 3 quick points. First of all, I think we do have to do a better job of having the pipeline that target our students to their greatest success opportunity to whatever campus it is, whether it's a community or technical college or Eastern Kentucky University or University of Kentucky. And I think that has to be more of an effort that we try to do by putting our big hats on versus our small hats, and I think that point is well taken. We also have to do a better job of figuring out how we get more money in state financial aid and federal financial aid. We run out of money fairly quickly. By 1st of February, we still have a lot of people on the table. We have to do a better job internally to reallocate, and I appreciate the reallocation that happened here that targets and focuses on those high impact strategies to help all of our students, no matter where they're at, succeed. And we know what those are. As you all know, Ben, we talk about them all the time to ad nauseum. We know what those are. But the other thing, and I think this is important, connecting it back to the budget, we understand that. That's why we're adding the premium. That's why we have the college readiness pool. I mean, these dollars go a long way, but we're going to have to reform developmental education, folks. I mean, we just have to. And I understand it's heresy me saying that, but the amount of students we lose in that process is huge. We have to figure out how to have high engagement, high impact, high rigor, high expectations, and also getting them to the level that they can be successful in the class beyond, right? So we know what those numbers are. The other thing I would add, just once again as a personal privilege, I'm an EKU graduate. You're talking about disenfranchised. Black kid from Clay County, Kentucky, illiterate father. People like Bill Ellis knows the story. I mean, people like him helped me get through. So faculty play an important piece, and I would be remiss if I didn't call on faculty and staff to really understand the role that you're playing here. It's not just money. I'd love to just talk with you about money. It's also the effort that you place outside the classroom and the expectations, input you place inside the classroom. We have to do a better job with our teacher education. I'm not saying we're bad. We just have to do a better job focusing on those kids that we're not preparing while they're in K-12 at the level we need to. So I would argue that this budget goes to address a lot of your concerns. Once again, I'm not going to sit here and argue where people should be. I'm going to argue that we need to be able to impact students before they get to us, and seriously, once they get to us, to figure out if we need to do it. So we may need to create dual enrollment programs with if they're here, with KCTCS. I could talk about this all day long, as you all know, but I just want to let you know that those are of great concerns to, I think, all of the institutions, the legislature, and with CPE.
Thank you, Dr. Thompson. Thank you to the panel. We truly appreciate your willingness to come and participate, share your thoughts with us. I do have, as the moderator, I'm going to have one parting question for the legislators, particularly. Dr. Thompson, Dr. King's presentation, we appreciate that very much. For the audience and for those of you who participate, we're looking forward to having more events like this on campus, to have this type of dialogue. We feel like it's critical to have that, to have your feedback, and we want to make sure that this is your EKU, that we carry your message to decision makers in a way that is adequate to what you desire for us to do. And in the business that I'm in, the question that I'm going to ask is, the Kentucky Constitution is a beautiful thing, and it mandates that our state has a balanced budget. We cannot print money in this state. Our revenues must match our expenses. We do have some flexibility with bonding authority and some of the things that we can do with that. And one of the screens that popped up a minute ago was talking about particularly our number one priority at this university, which is funding of phase 2 of our science building. That is a critical component for us as an institution to complete the STEM initiatives and be able to compete in that marketplace. Currently, we have part of our sciences located in phase 1 of our science building. We have biology, geography, geology, several of our other sciences that are not in that facility. As we're looking at this budget cycle, I think we know what the revenue projections are going to be. We're roughly a little over 2% for revenue projections. We still don't know what all the expense numbers are going to be. Do you feel like there's going to be an opportunity in this legislative session to fund some capital projects in the state of Kentucky for higher education? And I'll just throw it down the line, and you can share your opinions.
I'll let you guys go first.
I guess I'll be first since I'm last. Is that the way the
There we
order
go.
works? Well, I think that there is opportunities for funding capital projects, and I think there's opportunities when universities and university presidents are willing to put themselves on the line and get out and make sure that they're raising money privately to help allocate money that's being put in publicly through through our tax dollars. And I think that's what President Benson is doing now. I think he's out bringing some different revenues to the table because we see it's private-public partnerships. We talk about that a lot in Frankfurt, because it's going to take those public dollars and private dollars to be able to see funding go forward. But being an alumni of Eastern and what it's done for me, the opportunity it's provided, I want to do everything I can to continue to see Eastern go forward. And we'll definitely be advocating to try to see those dollars come together, because a sad time for me was a couple years ago whenever some of the other universities had some revenue sources to be able to see new capital projects be put into place, and Eastern Kentucky wasn't in a position because they didn't have some of the endowment and some of the revenue sources to be able to see those projects put into place. And I think we have that going now for us that will allow us to be able to do some things that we need to do.
Any thoughts, Representative Shell?
I would just probably second what Senator Carpenter said. And being an alumnus of EKU, I also was in that same situation and come to you and asked you that question as to why that we were put there. And in that conversation, I feel very confident that the university won't be put in any situations like that further with the leadership that Dr. Benson has given to the university and the work and the fight that he has going forward. It is really a great thing. I don't have anything really to go on beforehand, but now to this point that he's been the president of the university and been able to see him throughout the community and getting in touch with those people and building partnerships with people like myself to encourage others to come in to the university and into Kentucky so that he can fundraise off of this and make sure that the university is put in the best position possible moving forward. And so that's my commitment to the university is to be in contact and help with Dr. Benson and doing everything that we can to ensure that the university is putting its best foot forward.
Representative Simpson, I think you can probably offer more of a historical perspective, and as the post-secondary budget chairman, the realities of the situation we face is not necessarily specific to EKU, but as to post-secondary in general from a budgeting standpoint, what do you think the 2014 session holds for post-secondary budget funding?
If we collectively don't have the courage to embrace new revenues by tax reform, and that's talking about tax and growing areas, perhaps services, but it also addresses the elimination of exemptions. We exempt so much in Kentucky. We adopt these schemes, and they make sense when we adopt them, but the problem is we never go back and look to see if they still are necessary. If we don't have the courage to do these things, it's going to be very difficult for universities to have bonding authority outside of agency bonds that we spoke of earlier. We have not bonded projects for, I think for a couple of budgets. And our budget this year is more daunting than it was last year, because no one's talked about the fact that last year our budget was not structurally sound, which means that we used a lot of one-time money to balance our budget. I mean, let's face reality. We got our public teachers, the teachers retirement system. They're asking for $400 million the first year, $500 the second year. It's not going to happen, but the fact of the matter is they can ask. We have the challenges of funding our pension reform. We passed it last year, but we didn't fund it. So in light of that, being realistic, I don't see it as a possibility unless we collectively as a state, it's not the General Assembly, we're moved by you guys collectively. We're moved by our citizens, whatnot. Now the 6% debt cap, I'm not I'm not married to that. I mean, if the universities can make a good argument that it's going to move this state forward, I would advance our debt more, as long as the rating agencies that we spoke of earlier would not threaten to reduce our bond rate. But until we get the courage to do what we need to do, which is to provide necessary services, we're not going to have the luxury of funding these much-needed projects. I just don't think it's going to happen. That's my take. I'm one of 138. Hopefully I'm wrong, but that's the way I see it, predicated on that which I've seen the past 5 years as a budget review sub-chair.
Thank you. Representative Smart?
And I'll just end by saying he's right around the corner from me. I keep tabs on him every week. I make visits to the governor's office to see what's going to be put in his budget. And I will assure you that if universities get projects, we will get ours. But it's pretty slim right now.
I appreciate the candidness, and I think it's just important as we look forward and we look at our planning and we look at working with you. And Representative Simpson, you make a great point. This is a Kentucky issue. This is not the legislative body is obviously representative of the Kentucky, but we've got to make some hard choices as a state to move forward, and we look forward as an institution, and I know CPE looks forward to working together to try to help find those solutions, because we are a solutions-oriented university here at EKU. We appreciate all your time, and thank you guys very much for joining us.
Okay. Hey, thanks for having me down, guys. Ladies, I mean, this